Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of All at Once. I'm your host, Alexis Christine, and today is a very special episode because I am thrilled to announce that I am, participating in the third annual Podcasthon this year. For one whole week, more than 1,000 different podcasts are coming on and dedicating an episode to a charity of their choice. And for me today, I have the honor of supporting a charity called MAPS Canada. And MAPS stands for the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, which if you guys have listened to the podcast, you know that I have dabbled my fair share in psychedelics and I have found them ridiculously healing. And now there are so many studies and things coming out showing all of the scientific evidence of how it can actually help with depression, anxiety, other mental health disorders. And I'm just so excited to be able to support a association that is fostering more research and trying to create access or safe access to psychedelics for different sorts of therapies. Today's episode is going to be talking about all of the science behind psychedelics and how they can help with your mental health. And then I'll obviously go through my own experiences with what I have encountered and the shifts that it has made for me. I know that psychedelics can either go one of two ways. People are either super down and love it in terms of some sort of like party experience, or people are really scared and they think it's some big scary thing. Thank you to the war on drugs for that perception. And I'm here to tell you that it's kind of neither. Like you definitely shouldn't be partying on these things, but they're also not bad, right? They are one of the most powerful tools that we have in rewiring our subconscious and in healing our mental health in so many different ways. Things like PTSD, things like depression, things like anxiety, things like actual physical chronic health disorders. There's so many things that these psychedelics, these plant medicines can help with. And they got a really bad rap. And I'm going to go on my little spiritual tangent here because in the 70s, when everyone was peace, loving it up, doing all the acid, whatever it was, mushrooms, psilocybin, people did not care. Okay. They did not care about society, commercialism. They did not care about things that were materialistic, right? They realized that all you really need in life is love and each other. And the government saw that and was like, hey, we can't control people who don't care about all the things we're trying to use and control them with. So we are going to do this thing and say that psychedelics are really bad and really dangerous and make them seem like some big bad monster and make them very, very illegal. And that's just the way society works. But I'm here to tell you that this past stigma is just that. It's a stigma, right? It's a thought form that they wanted you to believe so that they could control you, so that they could control us. They could control society, because when we are living in a state of fear, we are easier to control. When we have autonomy over our decisions, when we feel empowered, when we feel confident, they can't control us, right? So they saw the way society was going. They were like, nah, F that. We're going to shift the narrative. And that's what they did. And now we actually have the science to back up that these psychedelics are not actually bad. They are not actually harmful for you. And instead, they're actually really freaking helpful in helping us heal. So there are a lot of studies coming out from places like Johns Hopkins actually showing that there's huge potential to heal things like PTSD, depression, and anxiety through use of psychedelic therapies. Okay, so psychedelics in general can actually help rewire the brain, which I'll get into a little bit later. And if you've listened to my other episodes or you're familiar with neural reprogramming, you'll understand kind of what that means. But just as an example, so Johns Hopkins did a study with a bunch of people who had severe depression and had tried all of the things, all the different modalities, had been on prescriptions for the depression and whatever else for a long time. And after just 1 to 2 sessions, the majority of this study group had drastically improved symptoms, some of them to the point where they didn't even need their prescription meds anymore for their depression. And that is just one example of how the psychedelics can actually help. In this case, the psilocybin can actually help rewire your brain and heal things like depression and like other mental illnesses. in just 1 to 2 sessions. This isn't 1 to 2 months. This isn't 1 to 2 years. This isn't prolonged exposure. This is 1 to 2 sessions, okay? Think about how powerful that is. Psychedelics are so different than antidepressant meds, right? Antidepressants are something you're on for long periods of time. These psychedelic assisted therapies can work in 1 to 2 sessions. Sometimes you'll need a little more, but it has been proven to work in as little as 1 to 2 sessions. There was also a study for people with PTSD using MDMA assisted therapies. And this was a group of people who had tried everything. They've tried talk therapy. They had tried EDMR. They had tried every single thing you can think of. They've tried everything, right? And after treatment with this MDMA assisted therapies, 67% of them no longer met the criteria for PTSD. That means 67% of them healed their PTSD after treatment in a controlled setting with MDMA. Think about how powerful that is. Think about what big of a shift we could make in society, we could make for the public, for the people, and all of these people who are struggling with all of these mental health issues, the veterans who come back from war with PTSD, all of the people who go through traumatic relationships, who go through physical abuse, all of these things. Think about how many of them could heal and start living a happy, healthier life through therapies like this. Okay, so you're probably wondering, how does this actually work? And I'm going to share a little bit of the science with you. So psychedelics in general work with our serotonin receptors, and our serotonin receptors control our mood, our emotions, and our mental health. They give our neuroplasticity a little bit of a boost, right? It's helping us break cycles of repeated thought patterns, repeated emotions and feelings. So think of people who are stuck in cycles of depression or of anxiety and things like that. The psychedelics will help break those cycles. It's very similar to neural reprogramming in the way where it allows you to reprogram those parts of your brain. And so if you're stuck in a cycle of anxiety, there's all of these triggers that give you anxiety or that trigger anxiety attacks. The psychedelics help you rewire those aspects of your brain. They tap into that neuroplasticity and the neural pathways and shift so that whatever those triggers were, say it was walking into a big crowded space, that was a trigger for an anxiety attack. The psychedelics help you shift those neural pathways to actually believing that, hey, this big crowd isn't a cause for anxiety. It's chill. It's all cool. And then once you're done with the treatment, obviously it's a lot more medically advanced than my very nonchalant way of wording it. But when you're done with the treatment, you can walk into a big crowd and no longer have that anxiety because the neural pathway in your brain has been rerouted, has been shifted, has been changed, and that's no longer a trigger for your anxiety. So like I said before, it's very similar to the neural reprogramming that I do with clients in the meditations where you're getting into that subconscious, you're getting into that theta delta state and rewiring. You're able to do this with psychedelics without having to go into that meta state. The psychedelics create a link between your conscious and subconscious mind. And so you're able to create those connections while being fully conscious, while being fully aware of what you're doing. This is why I said before, you should never be partying on psychedelics because your mind is so open and so suggestible. And there's just, as someone who works with the subconscious, there's just so much that I would not want going into my mind, but not everybody thinks that way. Another thing that it does is it actually helps dissolve your ego. So it pushes you out of your current perspective, your current narrative, and helps you see things in a different way. And this in turn can actually help you step outside of your usual thought patterns, your usual belief systems, and start seeing things from a different perspective to, again, rewire those beliefs, rewire those mindsets, and actually help shift you out of that place of depression, out of that place of anxiety, out of that PTSD kind of world that you live in, and be able to see it from a different view. It gives you almost like a detached perspective. And this is also very common in ketamine therapies. Ketamine is one of the very powerful ones that actually help you detach and see things from almost like a third party view, like you're viewing yourself from a detached perspective. And then one of the other really main things it can do is help you have these massive emotional breakthroughs. Like I mentioned before, the psychedelics allow you to access your subconscious. And as we go through life, majority of us are taught to repress our emotions because it doesn't feel safe to show them. It doesn't feel safe to express them. There's something that's been happened that's taught us we need to hold it down, whatever. When you're on these psychedelics, it can actually help you release all of these things that you've been holding in, causing these massive emotional breakthroughs. It's a form of very deep healing versus the numbing that we do in our conscious state. When we're repressing those emotions, we're numbing ourselves to those emotions and preventing ourselves from feeling them. When we're on these psychedelics and we have these big emotional releases, you're allowing yourself to heal that emotion, to heal from that experience and whatever caused that to be repressed, whatever caused that emotion to actually be there in the first place. Okay, let's get personal for a second. That was very sciencey. And I want to talk about my own personal experiences. And while I never have done a assisted therapy with psychedelics, I have had some very powerful healing experiences of my own, very similar to what you would experience in these sessions, just in terms of healing and how it's helped me. And so the first time that I ever did a psychedelic was not in a very conducive atmosphere for healing. It was something that I had wanted to try for a very long time. I had always wanted to do ayahuasca, which is DMT, and I had always been curious about psychedelics. And so when this opportunity came to me, I thought, why not? Let's try it. Loved it. Continued doing it, but it wasn't until the first time I had done it outside in nature that I truly understood the healing aspect of what these psychedelics can do for you. And I remember I was outside and we were walking through this kind of ravine forest thing. I remember we were like on the hunt to find this water, this stream, this creek, whatever. And as soon as we found it, I just burst into tears. I was crying so hard out of nowhere. I had no idea what came over me, no idea what hit me, but there was just this weight of relief being lifted off of my shoulders. And I was crying for about 10 minutes. And that was my first experience of having a very deep subconscious emotional wound being brought to the surface and released so that I could heal and move through it. And it was honestly one of the most powerful experiences I have ever had in my life. And that was the moment when I realized I cannot use these recreationally anymore because they are so powerful and potent as a healing tool that they need to be treated as such and they need to be honored as such. After that, every time that I did go into ceremony with these psychedelics, with these plant medicines, it was always very intentional. And I had so many healing in so many different ways. While I didn't suffer from intense anxiety or depression or PTSD or any of the other things, it was still very, very healing for me. So on kind of more of like a surface level, it helped me understand my connection to food, which I know sounds silly, but as someone who had struggled with binge eating and lost over 70 pounds, it was something that was actually very deeply ingrained in me, this wound with food and this mental health aspect around the eating disorder and all of these other things. It helped me understand and have a deeper connection to myself and to my body and understand what I was needing, the nutrients that my body needed, why I was having these cravings, why I was going on these binges, and really allowed me to see on a deeper level the source and the cause of the binge eating disorder and why I was constantly, even though I had sustained my weight loss, going back and struggling with these addictions to the foods and having these binges. And it was such a potent, eye-opening experience for me in a way that I had never experienced before. And I'm so grateful for that because it allowed me to shift my narrative around food. It allowed me to heal my relationship with food and get on a better page when it comes to how I fuel my body, how I view food as like nutrients versus how I used to view it as like good and bad. It also allowed me to see a lot of my deep rooted fears, having those come up to the surface for me to understand and to work through. A lot of what we do in our daily life is ruled by our subconscious. It rules 95% of our thoughts, emotions, feelings, actions. And so having those moments where I actually got to understand like, oh, I'm self-sabotaging in this way because of this deep-rooted fear, because of this deep-rooted trauma wound, and having those come forward and actually be able to understand my behavior, my thought patterns, why I was acting out in certain ways and move through them and shift them and heal them was so powerful for me, not just for myself, but for all the other people in my life as well, because it made the relationships and the friendships so much more harmonious. And as you heal and you become a more healed version of yourself, you naturally start having better relationships with the people around you. And then, of course, a lot of emotional release, because as I've mentioned before on this podcast, I was someone who repressed all of my emotions. That's the main thing that led to my weight gain. And having these psychedelics show me all of the emotions I was repressing and allow me to feel safe in releasing them and moving through them helped me release a lot of energy from my system and also helped me heal in so many different ways. Healing through the use of these plant medicines and psychedelics allowed me to really understand on a deeper level what my wants were in life, what my needs were in life, what the things that I valued were, my deep-seated wounds and fears that I was able to work through and heal and give myself a happier demeanor on a daily basis instead of being subconsciously weighed down by all of these things. They have changed my life over and over and over again. And I just want to remind you guys, like, this isn't about tripping, right? Like, you're not taking these and just deciding to go on some fun trip. It's really about healing. It's about seeing different aspects of you that you cannot access in your day-to-day life with your conscious mind. It's about going to the depths in your subconscious, in your body, in your mind, and understanding what is happening. Where do you need healing? Where are the fears coming from? What can you reprogram to remove these limiting beliefs, to remove these cycles of depression, to remove these things that give you anxiety, and understand why they're there and how to move through them in a way that will benefit you in your day-to-day life. So with that being said, psychedelics are not some magic pill that you can just take and be perfect and heal and whatever. It still takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of balls and guts to be able to face yourself in these ways. And it can feel very hard. Like I said, I cried for like 10 minutes straight on that first outdoor trip. There's a lot that comes up that you need to be okay and feel comfortable confronting and facing. And with people who do have severe depression or PTSD or anxiety, these assisted therapy sessions are so useful because you need someone there with you to help walk you through those hard moments when they come up, to help walk you through those really intense memories and fears and things that have caused these wounds and these belief systems or caused these things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, because they're hard to face, okay? That's why people go to therapy. That's why people get put on meds. You need someone there to kind of hold your hand and walk you through it, who understands what you're going through and understands how to get you through it. So having these assisted therapies with doctors and other therapists there to help guide you through the session is so useful and so important. You should never be doing these things alone. And I also want to preface by saying that psychedelics and psychedelic therapies are still illegal in most of the world. They are slowly coming back, which is so amazing. I'll read off. At the moment, it's legalized in Oregon and Colorado for psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms. It's the psychedelic component in magic mushrooms. There's also other ones. There's obviously LSD, there's DMT, there's mescaline. There's so many different psychedelics. We talked about MDMA, we talked about ketamine. So in Oregon and Colorado, it's just psilocybin that's been legalized for therapy. Australia has approved all psychedelic assisted therapy, which is lit. And there's also clinical trials going on with the FDA for MDMA therapy. So it's currently in approval process. And Canada, also in Alberta, has approved psychedelic assisted therapies. So it's on the way. It's coming. If this is something that appeals to you, I urge you to do your research, really understand what it is that you're getting yourself into, and then also make sure that there is a place around you where it is legal and there's a clinic that you can go and do it in these controlled settings. So just as my final few thoughts, psychedelics truly do have such amazing potential to be able to help people through all of these mental health struggles that we go through on a regular basis and that way more of us struggle with than we should. And it's something that is going to be so powerful and so potent in terms of helping us rewire our brain and breaking these thought beliefs, breaking these habits, and moving through things like depression, anxiety, and PTSD. It's going to be one of the most potent healing modalities. And I cannot wait until the rest of the world gets on board and starts utilizing this. But I just wanted to share some awareness today about the power that psychedelics can have. They're not some bad, evil thing. They're also not a party drug. They are actually here to help us in some of the most powerful ways possible. Okay, so that wraps up, you guys, this episode of the Podcasthon. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed it and you want to learn more, I will post both the Maps Canada and the Maps US, because I know I do have a lot of US listeners, in the description for those links. You can go browse, do your own research, reach out to them if you want to. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode and it gave a little bit more context into psychedelics and what they can do for you and how powerful they really can be. If you guys enjoyed the episode, please give a like, follow, subscribe, share, do whatever you got to do to help support the pod. And I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. I will talk to you soon.